Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, looking now at this default crisis here in the United States. This is a catastrophe. If you have the default of the United States, at that point, all central bank reserves in the world, which are denominated in dollars, will become of questionable value, and that will lead to a devaluation of the holdings of all of these same central banks. That will be a worldwide panic. Just as a sidelight on this, we'll get to the Greek bailout in just a minute, but the European Central Bank had been saying it would not accept defaulted bonds as collateral for loans. Now, if the U.S. Treasury bond defaults, that would mean that U.S. Treasury bonds would not be acceptable to the European Central Bank, and one thinks to the Bank of Japan, the Bank of China, the Bank of Russia, and every place else. That would then mean that a whole bunch of defaulted bonds that are now held as collateral, various other purposes, not just central banks, but all kinds of escrows and transactions across the world, that will create a world panic. That will cause a catastrophe. And these Tea Party lunatics, these are right-wing anarchists, they say, well, we need a market, we don't need a government. Down with the government, get rid of the government. Well, that sounds pretty much like Western Europe in the wake of Attila the Hun in the 400 AD to 500 AD period, except it wasn't quite that bad, because when the Roman Empire collapsed, there was still a church which was going, right? The church hierarchy remained in place, and they managed to maintain order to some degree. You had a situation where the state had been smashed, but the church remained. If we go into that kind of a crash, we don't have any secondary institution to fall back on. So these people are certifiable lunatics. Ironically, one of the rational voices now turns out to be the oligarch and plutocrat Senator Dianne Feinstein, and she says what we need is simply pass the Reid-McConnell plan and no tax increases and no entitlement cuts. And I would say no cuts of any kind. Just pass the McConnell plan. Forget about Reid. Just McConnell. Let Obama raise the debt ceiling, right? Let him pull himself together and demand the 3 increases in the debt ceiling. No cuts. Cuts do not work. Cuts increase the deficit. You cut the deficit now, it increases in the out years. This is the lesson from Bruning to Schwarzenegger to Papandreou, worldwide, everywhere, always the same. Cuts don't work, but they do kill people, they do destroy the society, and, as the Bruning case reminds us, they can open the door to a Hitler or a new Hitler. Who knows? I don't want to find out. Let's not go down that particular road. So we need a rebellion. The other possibility, which I think came up, Obama was just at the University of Maryland College Park. He thought that would be a fairly domesticated audience for him. The question of using the 14th Amendment to simply say to these lunatics, you hate the Constitution. In particular, you've always hated the 14th Amendment, you neo-Confederates. We're simply going to keep paying the debt service of the United States based on the 14th Amendment and throw that into the courts. And you go to the American people and tell them why you want a default that's going to lead to these catastrophic consequences. We just had Democratic Congressman Eliot Engel on TV saying, use the 14th Amendment. Yes, Obama is determined to capitulate. Anybody with any brains would talk broadly, even if he wasn't going to do it. If he were not about to do it, he would start talking, harping constantly on the inherent powers of the 14th Amendment. But he's taken that off the table in the same way that Pelosi took the impeachment of Bush off the table. The Democratic Party is a useless wreck. And if they really go down this road, if you destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, what's the point of the Democratic Party? Maybe they're ultra-left social policies. I don't know. That seems to be the only thing that Obama is offering, is some kind of ultra-left social policy reforms at the same time that he's shafting the vast majority of working families. In Minnesota, we have a case in point, right? We're getting more information about what Governor Dayton did. Well, he caved on most of the points that the reactionaries had demanded. The reactionaries got most of what they wanted. The fanatics won out. Dayton caved. And this is inevitable if you don't go with the Wall Street sales tax. You must have the Wall Street sales tax as the leading attack edge of your entire position. Otherwise, you are doomed. You will fail. You get nowhere. The Wall Street sales tax. Why can't Wall Street pay either this just the normal state sales tax that everybody else pays? That's, I think, a good starting position. And then fall back on 1% or as much as you can get at this point. We've also got, case in point, another anti-government Legion of Greed Republican, Congressman Micah of Ohio, had attempted to build into a law that there can't be subsidies for air traffic control at rural airports. This is the so-called essential services, I think. So what this is possibly going to lead to, within a couple of days, we could have shutdowns of part of the Federal Aeronautics Administration. Now, they say not the air traffic controller part, but don't bet the ranch, and it's certainly going to disrupt what's going on. You cannot have a government of right-wing anarchists and neo-feudalists who are determined to destroy civilization as we've known it. They are not conservatives. They are reactionaries. Many of them are proto-fascists or indeed fascists all the way, and some of them are getting worse than that. So, on the other hand, why do we have these people? Well, we can thank Obama. It's Obama's malfeasance, the zoo of czars and ultra-lefts that he put into the cabinet, right? All of the excesses of Obama's early years that made it easier, much easier for these people to come out of the woodwork. Remember, Carter, as I wrote in Obama, the Postmodern Coup, Carter gave you the Christian evangelical political movement. And Obama is giving you, of course, has given you the Tea Party. Now, we've also got the question of the ratings agencies. You want to know who the dictator of the United States is right now? David T. Beers, B-E-E-R-S. David T. Beers. He is the managing director of Standard & Poor's, or one of them, and his portfolio is he directs the ratings that are given to sovereign states. We just had these bandits from Standard & Poor's attacking Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, New Mexico, and indeed one other state. They had 5 states that they said are most dependent on the federal budget. And many of these states have a AAA rating. Maryland certainly has a AAA rating, but they're now told if the federal government goes bankrupt, then your AAA rating will be taken away. This also shows, remember, when it comes to these austerity ghouls at the rating agencies, you default on one thing, you've defaulted on everything. Tea Party, take note. You can't do a selective default because you're not making the rules, as long as you give power to these crazy ratings agencies. Now, David T. Beers has been courted by the Obama administration. Obama is kowtowing to the ratings agencies. Let's go into this. This is a profile in shame. The United States government groveled in front of a bunch of rating agencies who ought to be indicted. They should be in the dock based on what they did in 2008. Back in a minute.